Hello and welcome everybody. It is Taco Movie Talks 11, and this episode is dedicated to Godzilla Week, and I am brought to you here proudly and happily with our co-host Ethan, whose channel is Film Junkie. It will be linked in the description below. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and also check out Ethan's channel, like his videos, and subscribe to his channel as well. Ethan, how are you doing? How was Godzilla week for you?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. I Godzilla week was a very interesting week, let me tell you that.
We were both talking, and this was actually kind of very much an entry point for both of us. Um, I think
Yeah.
the only Godzilla film I'd watched prior to these two was the Bryan Cranston one that came out a little bit ago.
hmm Yeah. And I had never seen a Godzilla movie, so this was my introduction.
And I saw on your Letterbox channel, which will also be linked down below. Definitely check out Ethan, which is also Film Junkie on Letterbox as well. If you have a Letterbox, he watched
Yes.
a lot of cool movies, has a lot of cool lists that I think you would all appreciate. But you checked out some additional
Yes, sir.
Godzilla movies too.
I did. So when I like to delve into a new series, I always like to go back to basics. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start, and I've been meaning to watch it for like years now. So I decided, you know what? It's about time. I watched the original Godzilla first by director Ishiro Honda, who also directed my pick for the Godzilla movie this week.
Mm,
And out of all of them, I definitely think it's the best one.
okay, that's Do you because I haven't seen it, but do you think it's from uh, plot point perspective is what makes it the best?
Um, Yeah, I'd say so because I feel like it goes back to the roots of Godzilla and what Godzilla as a character was supposed to represent,
Hmm.
which was he was supposed to represent nuclear warfare from a country that experienced its effects firsthand.
That is definitely like a really neat cultural perspective because if you haven't watched any episodes, Ethan and I are both American, and we have been
Yes.
fortunate enough to not face a nuclear warhead, so to speak. So we
Yeah.
don't we kind of have the opposite perspective is that, but I can't imagine what effect that would have on people who lived through it and even generations following.
Yeah. Um, I definitely through this, I've definitely found a filmmaker that's very, very interesting in how he deals with that sort of with these sort of monster movies with Ishiro Honda. I think he's a great director overall.
And definitely something I'm probably going to mention time and time again, but I wanted to be just right at the forefront of the video is I think the practical effects done in both of these movies are kind of I love it. It's what makes me enjoy these movies so much.
Yeah,
And it's almost like a master class or like how to make the most out of practical effects.
yeah. It's some of these are, I would say, dated, but that's kind of what makes them super charming and
Mhm.
interesting as little pieces of art. Is those practical effects? Obviously, they're not. I don't think they're like the thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing in terms of.
I agree with you. I think you cut out just a little bit there, Ethan. You were saying you don't think it is quite like the thing. Ethan, can you hear me? We're gonna take a slight break, everyone. Hold on with us. We are back, everyone. Um, Ethan, you were saying in comparison to the thing that it doesn't quite
Yeah,
hold up, but that
yeah,
you found some charm in it, perhaps.
yeah. They're just really charming, very charming piece of art that you can look back on and say, oh, that's it's like it's like Top Gun's soundtrack.
Yes, it's kind of a
It's like
time capsule of sorts.
it's so cheesy and dated, but I can't help but love that soundtrack just because of how cheesy and dated it is.
I agree with you, like 100%. Um, like Ghidorah, even when it was at its most cheesy, like some of the stuff that was going on, it was pure entertainment for me.
Yeah.
Even if it was like a little separated from like a super serious tone, like it was still enjoyable, and that is I think that's what people really like about it. And there is
Mhm.
messages as well too.
Yes, I found like because I after watching the original Godzilla, I there's one movie that Ishiro Honda made before Ghidorah, and I think it was the setup. It was Mothra versus Godzilla,
Mm,
and so I decided I was going to watch that one before watching Ghidorah, and I really like that movie as well because I feel like Ishiro Honda makes he's able to really play with the themes of what Godzilla is more
mhm.
and add more to it. And it doesn't it feels different in a way.
Mm. I definitely think, and people would likely agree, but Honda is probably the best of the directors, and not like I have
Mm.
much authority, but because you I think the original, so you saw three movies from Honda, and then
Yeah, I saw three.
one question I would want to ask you, like
Hmm.
as a director, would this ever be a subject material that you would want to dive into?
Like Honda's work as a whole, or just Godzilla movies in general.
Yeah, like would you ever want to take on a Godzilla project as a director?
Yeah, I mean, I found like what Honda's really good at is I found that what Honda's really good at is directing your eye through all the madness.
Mhm.
Because you go to something like Ghidorah, and Ghidorah is just pure madness. It is a crazy movie. But what Honda's really good at is he's able to take the camera and edit things around so it becomes a very well paced and it's a very well paced movie, and he's able to take the camera and direct your eye at what it needs to be directed at.
I certainly agree with you. I think the cinematography of the movie, I think it would be easy to get lost and not fully appreciate it, but there was definitely times where I felt like he was doing a very, very good job at
Oh yeah.
how he was picking his shots, and like you said, kind of directing your eye, which I feel like Akira Kurosawa is someone who's really good at that. I think Ozu is
Yeah.
is pretty good at that, and I think
Mhm.
it could just be like an attention to detail within Japanese filmmaking that is very much part of their structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, without further ado, let's get into the first one, which is Godzilla versus Destoroyah by Takeo Akawara, 1995. And this one was the movie that I recommended. And I think, as far as the character designs, it's a lot more. I mean, you can clearly tell it fits very much kind of into the 90s aesthetic. Um, and they add some features to Godzilla himself, where he is he has like nuclear fission going on with inside him. So
Mm.
they are, the Japanese people are very scared that they're going to have a meltdown from Godzilla because of the fission going on within him. While at the same time, and I would like to ask you, Ethan, is in the original Godzilla, is the that technology with the, is it the oxygen
Yeah, it's the
micronizer?
oxygen.
With
Yeah, the destroyer. No,
yeah,
it's not the oxygen destroyer, but it's the one that like takes all the oxygen out of the
yes.
beings in this certain space. Yeah, that type of machine. Yeah, that's in the original.
That's okay, so that's pretty cool as a callback. Um,
Yeah.
because they kind of find microorganisms in like prehistoric soil and test with this new technology that harkens back to the micro oxygenizer, and it creates Destoroyah, and the people are kind of hoping that Destoroyah can use this micronizer within it to stop Godzilla from causing a full meltdown, or explosion, which would be world ending and absolutely catastrophic. So both characters are really neat. I think it touches on another nuclear um, dilemma. Overall, like, what were your initial thoughts once you watched this one, Ethan?
Well, I just wanted to say that I'm glad we picked two separate films from different continuities because there's obviously Godzilla is like a very convoluted series in terms of its continuity,
Hmm.
and so you picked one from the Heisei continuity, and then I picked one from the original Showa continuity. So that's good. Um, so uh, I so at first I was like, oh no, because you mentioned in your letterbox review of this movie of the dubbing
Mm.
in this, and maybe it's just me, but I cannot stand with dubs like that. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
It's like it's the whole movie, and it's like, oh
It definitely does take you out of it, and some of the translations are probably like too on the nose and loses a lot of subtlety.
yeah,
To me, just because the movie is so cheesy in and of itself, it didn't,
hmm,
and I'm very much the same way you are with dubbing. That really takes me out of it. Um,
yeah,
I definitely I appreciated in yours. I would much rather read closed captioning or subtitles than dub. But
oh yeah,
yeah, for me, the dubbing didn't quite kill it the way that it does with a lot of other
hmm.
movies. But I can definitely see people not being a huge fan of that.
That's, I mean, that's not my like the worst part about the movie, but it does take me out of it just a bit. At the end, I kind of got used to it and
Hmm.
just hustled through it. But yeah, it's definitely not a good thing on the movie's part. But other than that, the movie's decent. I don't think it's great. It's probably my least favorite Godzilla movie I've seen so far,
Hmm.
which is pretty crazy because I think out of all of the four movies I watched, that one's like the second highest rated on Letterboxd other than the original Godzilla.
Yeah, I did notice. I think a lot of people usually have it within their top tens and rate it pretty high. That was basically
Yeah.
why I recommended it because, like
Hmm.
I said, I don't have a ton of um, experience with it.
Yeah. It's definitely like I equate Godzilla to Marvel.
Mm,
And I like Godzilla, and I'm just gonna be honest with our audience and you. I despise Marvel. I, their
Yeah.
movies are okay. Their movies are okay. The movies themselves are okay. I just think they're creatively bankrupt in my personal opinion, and I feel like Godzilla doesn't feel like that most of the time. Sometimes they do, but it definitely not the case here. That's probably the movie's strong suit is that it's not creatively bankrupt at all. It's very creative
Mhm.
with the fact that it calls back to that original plot with the oxygen micronizer
Mhm.
and like the way they're able to include it in the plot, I think is really cool.
I agree, and kind of like going to what you said, I really like as a the series as a whole, its willingness to really lean into the wacky, the weird, the outrageous, and not shy away from that. So it
Yeah,
kind of it gives me like a feeling where it's like, oh, you have all the creative freedom you want to create something different, even though it's in the
yeah,
series, you know?
mhm,
And I as far as like the practical effects, I think, you know, Honda is able to do it just as well. I think maybe the one thing I would give this movie the edge on would be, like you said, maybe the science behind it, how we kind of get to an endpoint to properly wrap it up. I liked how
yeah,
solidified the ending was in comparison
yeah.
to Ghidorah, and
Mhm.
I liked the monster designs in this one a little
Oh,
bit
the
better too.
monster designs are fantastic.
Oh
In
yeah.
fact, like the the fight scene at the end, I think you mentioned it also in your review. The fight scene at the end is great. It is a great scene.
Yeah, I really liked kind of the physicality of the monsters. Like and it felt like everything had kind of proper impact to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I guess they called it Godzilla Junior, like gets dropped,
Hmm.
you really felt like that was a big thing, and in comparison to like when Godzilla was like throwing rocks at Ghidorah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And
Um,
I think it's Destoroyah. I don't know. We could call it Destroya. It doesn't matter. Um,
Destoroyah
uh,
maybe.
yeah. Destroya. His design is just yeah, it's really cool. I love the xenomorph like uh little teeth that it has.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I forgot
yeah,
about that. That is such a cool, yeah, where it pops out of its mouth.
yeah, that is a really cool design. It's definitely one of the better designs I've seen for a Godzilla, like a kaiju.
Mhm.
Because like you watch Ghidorah and you see Rodon, and it's like Rodon's cool, but his design is kind of weak.
I agree. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, Mothra, okay, in the original, because you saw what is the prequel to the next movie we're going to talk about,
Yeah,
is Mothra like that, like almost like a what do you want to call it? Like a on the ground that crawls around type creature, or is it a moth in the movie that predates it?
so it starts out as a moth, and when we get into it, I'll probably explain what happens because
Okay.
that's why I wanted to watch Mothra versus Godzilla because I feel like that would give just a little bit of leeway for what happens in Ghidorah.
Okay, okay. Okay, we'll touch on that. Another thing that I did like is that there is like an actual kind of evolution to Destroya and Godzilla in this movie. So I
Yeah,
mean, we're used to the certain character design of Godzilla, and this one he's almost like you can see there's like almost combustion going on within him. His
Yeah.
spine is, glowing, and then Destoria or Destoroyah or Destroya, which
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
it kind of, I think it has multiple forms, and then at certain points it gets seemingly destroyed, but comes back as like multiple creatures. I
Hmm.
liked that we got to see like differences, I guess, as with the
Hmm.
character throughout.
Yeah.
Um, I think one thing that this lacks that the movie you recommended is much stronger in, the emotional beats didn't quite resonate with me, and maybe that's um because, like, like going back to Marvel, like maybe when you see, a big character in that die, it resonates if you have watched so many films and you're like, oh, I have seen
Yes.
this person so much. For
Yeah.
me, that just diving in, it didn't resonate probably as much as it would have for a seasoned Godzilla vet.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and oh yeah, one thing is that the third act is great, but the first act I don't very like at all. I don't very much like.
Yeah.
A lot of exposition. I mean, not expedition.
I agree with you. Yeah, the first bit, it's like just kind of waiting, biding your time, ready to get to the big fight.
Yeah, it felt a little less like that with Ghidorah, which is why I like that one more.
hmm the thing that
But
Ghidorah had going for it was there was a subplot that was entertaining, that when they took you out of the build up to the fight and the fight itself, you were still invested.
yeah, exactly.
This was kind of like, all right, we're going to give you the explanations why this is going to work out the way it does, which it didn't
Hmm.
completely miss for me, just because it was like, to me, it was like kind of build up for the main event. And it's like, okay, I'm getting
Yeah,
ready. I'm learning a little bit about what each character brings to the table, but it wasn't quite as, quickly paced, or there wasn't as much going on to really latch on to with this one in the first act.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on this one?
No. I think I summarized my feelings pretty well with the help of your commentary as well.
What did you rate this one?
I thought this was overall okay. It was a mixed experience. First act wasn't great. Third act was great. Dubbing kind of sucked.
Mhm.
All around solid. I gave it. It was teetering on a 7, but I gave it a 6.
Yes. Um, yeah, I gave it just slightly more. I gave it a 7 out of 10 or 3.5 on Letterboxd. Overall, I can see why people like this. I think cool is a good way to explain it. If you have
Yeah, it's
any,
cool.
yes, for sure.
Very cool.
Don't think it is maybe as groundbreaking. And would you agree with that from what you've seen?
Yeah, no, especially in comparison to the original Godzilla, it's not it's not anything groundbreaking or like super interesting.
Let me ask you, how do you think it went about kind of exploring its themes?
With Destoroyah,
And even do they give, they call it Godzilla Senior, but do they give it almost any like nomenclature to describe that it has to do with like nuclear fission?
um, I'm not sure, but I feel like the Godzilla being basically like a nuclear weapon has like come to a head. I feel like there's something to be said there.
Mhm.
Not sure what it is, but I could speculate.
Yeah, I think the senior is kind of about like actually using nuclear power as a whole.
Mhm.
The and
Yeah.
how scary that can be because obviously there's like Chernobyl and like 3 Mile Island and maybe like the evolution of a nuclear threat and how catastrophic it would be in the 90s compared to
Mm.
the 40s. I think
Very interesting. That
yeah,
is very interesting, actually.
I think there's definitely something there with Junior too. And and I kind of explained my feelings. It's almost like like maybe it's like a part of their culture and it's not something that they want to be forgotten maybe
Mhm.
where like having that happen to them it did and I can't speak from personal experience, but I mean, Japan is very much westernized, and you can see it through cinema, where
Yeah.
1950s Japan seems very, very close in some aspects, in kind of like the business aspects is very westernized.
Yeah. Well, Godzilla was. I'm pretty sure Godzilla was supposed to be like a response to King Kong, who like
Ooh.
obviously King Kong was a revolution, and I compare the original Godzilla to the original King Kong. I think they're about equal in terms of quality. I think they're both fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, but God, yeah, I compared those two because they're just the originators. They're the most groundbreaking and innovative, and I feel that King Kong sort of inspired Godzilla in a way because uh, King Kong obviously was a giant ape who is just he's just a again.
No, you're there.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
No, you sorry about that.
I was just droning on. I'm sorry. I keep droning on, but um, yeah, I just groundbreaking stuff. I could drone on about it, but
No, I
I don't
liked
want
where you
to.
were going. I've not yet seen the original King Kong. I think I saw Peter Jackson's King Kong in the early 2000s.
Hmm.
Um, but I was very young. I think I saw that in
Hmm.
theaters when it came out. And
Whoa.
yeah, not to date myself, but because that was early 2000s, I think, when that one came out.
Yeah, that was
Um,
2005. I wasn't even cognizant yet.
oh wow. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, and you said you had seen the original.
Yeah, I have.
What takeaways did you get from that? As like thematically, I guess.
Um, that I feel like that's more touches upon the idea of disturbing nature in
Mm,
a sort of way.
I could yeah,
And
that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and our sympathy for animals.
Okay. Yeah, I
I feel
mean,
like that's more along the lines of that, but I don't think it's as interesting for. I think where King Kong beats Godzilla is in its special effects because King Kong was 21 years before Godzilla,
oh wow.
and I feel like King Kong was 1933. So I
Ooh,
feel like, and those special effects I feel hold up
still.
still to this day.
Is it
So
stop motion,
yeah, it's
King
stop
Kong?
motion,
I love stop
beautiful stop
motion.
motion. Yeah,
Uh,
it's
that would be
God, it's so beautiful.
And I think we talked about this in one of our recent episodes. I mean, would you ever want to delve into that? Or let me ask you this: when directors do that, do they have kind of artists on hand to get them the shot they need per frame, so to speak?
Yeah. hmm
Okay.
Because, well, you need your specific visual, you need your specific stop motion effects artist.
Mm.
Um, Definitely, yeah, definitely. If you want to touch upon that in a later date, I would love to do that.
Yeah, because there's certainly very, popular and critically acclaimed stop motion movies that
Yeah,
I've yet to see. I mean, I know Chicken Run is very, very famous for that. Correct, they're stop
yeah,
motion, right?
yeah. Um, my favorite stop motion, like fully and like you got we could touch upon so much in the history of stop motion with the Godfather of stop motion, Ray Harryhausen,
Ooh, I
who's
would like that. That would be neat.
yeah, who's a genius. He's a amazing stop motion effects artist, and then we could touch upon like the purely animated ones. My personal favorite Coraline is just
Yes.
amazing.
Um, is um is A Nightmare Before Christmas, is that stop motion as well, or does that
Yep,
utilize? Yeah.
that's fully stop motion. Yeah,
That is probably one of the few that I've actually seen, and it's a work of art, obviously.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Let's
All right.
do you want to summarize Ghidorah, the three-headed monster?
Yes, yes. So Mothra has defeated Godzilla, but so in Mothra versus Godzilla, Mothra dies, but so the whole film is about this egg that this business wants, and Mothra wants to protect it. So and then Godzilla comes back. So it starts to get really crazy around Mothra versus Godzilla. And so, but eventually the egg hatches,
Okay.
and out comes these larva Mothra, like
Mm.
Mothra in the form of larva, and they start attacking Godzilla. They eventually defeat Godzilla, and then in Ghidorah, they come back because the end of the world is coming. There's a bunch of crazy events that keep happening, and eventually Ghidorah will appear, and the end of the world will be upon us unless the three monsters, Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra, come together to fight Ghidorah.
Absolutely.
hmm
And there's also, and I think I was talking a little bit about this earlier. There was like a subplot with the Venetian slash princess and
hmm
the news broadcaster and cop, which was really a great idea, I think. It almost a
Yeah,
little bit, and stop me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as well versed in this film franchise as well as Godzilla, but it kind of felt
hmm
like James Bond, just a spice of James Bond with Godzilla with that side plot.
yeah, yeah. Because there's a princess. The Venusian uh, has taken control of a princess of a certain like region of the world, and a bunch of mobsters try and go after her, and it's very interesting side plot.
Yeah, so like it really felt like we were at a real quick pace from start to finish having that there. And I do
Yeah,
think the first movie we talked about, the one I recommended, it would have benefited from a side plot like that.
yeah, and yeah, and like this movie has so much going on, from like a monster standpoint as well as that side plot. And I looked at that 93-minute runtime and I said to myself, how is this going to work? Because I feel like it's going to be the exact opposite of Destroya, where there's going to be like too much going on and it's going to feel too rushed.
Mhm.
But again, Honda is a great director, and he manages to weave the viewer through all that, and he's able to get through all of those side points and all of these monsters and what their deal is, and it's great.
Yeah, I don't think he told everything very well. We got all the information we needed, and for fans of the monsters, there's plenty of that too. I love the
Hmm.
idea to kind of have a 3-on-1 type, showdown at the end.
Yeah,
The one criticism I touched on previously was, and I think, and I want to hear your perspective because you saw Mothra. Is it Godzilla versus Mothra? Is the title of the one that
yeah.
was?
Or it's called Mothra versus Godzilla, but it's whatever.
Yeah. Um, that this one doesn't quite end in a matter that felt fulfilling for me. It kind of it really
Yes,
leans into, okay, there's going to be another movie coming out of this.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
So from
Yeah,
that
it's
perspective,
strange.
yeah, it wasn't the battle wasn't very climactic, but
Hmm.
we do get the subplot really wrapped up nicely. So from that perspective, you do get some of, like, you know, okay, there is a story that has reached its conclusion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so weird how that fight ends. It's just like he just gets webbed and then he just flies away.
I I agree. I was like, I wanted, even if it would have just, got injured in like a different way, and then it retreated. It would have made more sense to me.
Hmm.
Like, if
Yeah.
Godzilla would have like suplexed Ghidorah, and then it's like, or maybe lost one of its heads, or something like that, I would have been like, okay, like, that makes sense.
Hmm.
One thing I
Yeah.
will say, um, I think it's about, like 60-40, where some of like the monsters looked pretty cool for the most part. I really, really like
Hmm.
Ghidorah, liked
Yes.
Godzilla. Rodon was pretty cool, and then Mothra the larva was like a little. I kind of wanted to see the evolution into Mothra. I thought that was going to be a big point of the movie.
Oh yeah, that would have been really cool. Um, yeah, I thought Rodon was cool, but his design was a bit underwhelming. But I like the monster, like in how he attacks and how his movements go.
Oh man, yeah, I absolutely love the movements. It was part cool, part wacky, and like part funny. The way its heads were just
Yeah,
like kind of wiggling all over the place.
yeah,
And
and
also,
like Godzilla is just. I realize why he's called King of the Monsters because he's just so entertaining to watch because in this movie he's such a jokester.
I agree. The
He
use
just
of the
starts kicking
tail,
rocks at people.
yeah, that part was like legitimately making me laugh. Like, my girlfriend looked up
Yeah.
for a second. She's like, "This is a weird movie," and then like Godzilla starts kicking rocks, and I was like, "It's kind of funny." And I think she started to see the humor after that. Also, I mean, like we said, um, the practical way that we get large scale destruction, that's the way to do it. I like
Mhm.
that much, much more than, I mean, at this point, CGI is nearly indistinguishable.
Yeah.
but you can kind of tell. I mean, you're like, they weren't really doing this. Your brain almost can't let you forget that it's like this isn't real, but seeing it done
Yeah.
practically, there's something to that is just really, really cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I like the blend of CGI and practical effects was perfected about 29 years ago with Jurassic Park, obviously.
Mhm.
And with this one, they just go stick to purely practical effects. There's something charming about that.
And for this to like that is the part where it's like it really holds up for and I thought this was done in the 70s and like not like that makes a huge difference, but when I saw
Yeah.
1964, I was like, "Holy
Yeah.
crap." To be doing
Yeah.
that stuff, it holds up so well all the destruction because they did it practically.
Yeah. Exactly. If they didn't, if I mean, obviously, I don't think they had CGI back in 1964,
Mhm.
but those practical effects are wonderful.
I mean, the special effects that they had, like, kind of like, I don't even know what it is, like, maybe lightning that Ghidorah's doing. That
Hmm.
stuff, it leans kind of a little cheesy, but, it was one of the parts that it kinda added to the charm for me.
Yeah, I actually think it worked. I think the lightning worked as a whole.
Yeah. And then
Like
Godzilla has his own kind of, like,
Mhm.
breath thing. Not the wind,
Yeah,
but, when it had that special effect as well. I thought it worked too.
yeah. And I feel like overall the practical effects definitely beat out. I think that's the weakest part of the original Godzilla is the practical effects don't hold up as well, which is why I said King Kong's beats Godzilla out in special effects because that was like 2 decades before, and that still holds up to this day.
Mm. I
But
have to watch the original for sure.
yeah, yeah. Um, I really liked the I really liked the costumes for for Godzilla. I really like his movements as well because he has this weird he puts his head on his hands. I think at one point in one of these movies, but like when things are going wrong, just like
Almost like some slapstick comedy mixed in
yeah,
there.
yeah. It seems that there is some slapstick comedy in both of these movies because he's a klutz too.
Yeah.
He's a klutzy guy.
One of the best parts was when Godzilla would be, like, grounded anytime he would get thrown to the ground. Him trying to get up was absolutely
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah,
It
yeah.
it made me wonder
I
if
was
it
like,
was
what the
just
hell?
the actor having trouble getting up in the suit or if it was like, well, okay, really struggle getting up on this take.
Hmm.
Um, was there anything else that, like, really stuck out to you?
Um, trying to think because I watched this yesterday and yeah, I don't think there's much else to say. I think I really like the plot and how I love how crazy it is. I kind of like that.
I
It's
agree.
just
I
it's a crazy plot, but it's weird. It, when done well, it's pretty magical.
Anything thematically that stuck out to you?
I feel like it has something to do with like a sort of like climate change. I feel like there's certain
Mm,
there's certain speculation to be had with that with like the world ending events with like the meteor showers and stuff like that. Um,
I think you're dead on
yeah,
with that because they had talked about
yeah.
it. Was it? This one, I might be getting things mixed up. Were they talking about the winter being warmer and encephalitis, or am I getting movies mixed up?
No, I think I think that is where where that is from. Yeah, it's a very interesting look at yeah, I feel like there's something to be said about climate change, and obviously climate change has nothing to do with nuclear warfare, but I I feel like so obviously God this is the only time where Godzilla is actually the good guy, it seems.
Hmm.
Um, but uh, so is it like is if we use nuclear warfare correctly, we can use it for good? Like, is it something like that? I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I see it more as that, but it's definitely interesting speculation from a from the themes of the original. You could build on the themes for this movie.
Yeah. Um, I think like one thing that kind of sparked my imagination when looking at the time period. This is very much when the space race was on, and I wonder if they're trying to make commentary on like the fear of outer space. You know, with Ghidorah.
Hmm. Yeah, that does make sense. Like themes of space exploration.
Yeah, exactly, and all of the um, things we could kind of step our foot into accidentally by kind of going out of our realm of comfort, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. I definitely thought about that as well when thinking about that. But the fact that you brought it up is yeah,
Was Infant Island touched on a bit in Mothra versus Godzilla?
yeah. That's where like so in the Mothra versus Godzilla, they go to Infant Island to persuade the people to have Mothra go and try and defeat Godzilla.
Okay.
And so yeah, I feel like it's actually used less in Ghidorah than Infinite Island is less of a plot point than it is in Mothra versus Godzilla.
Yeah, all of the things they had. It's so many wacky, like off the wall ideas, and it's really neat to kind of see creativity just go wild. Like let's just throw these all into one movie. And when you kind of give yourself the leeway where it's like, hey, we're not let's step a little bit out of reality for the
Mhm.
movie. I kind of enjoy that. There's always a need where it seems like a lot of times things need to stay within a realm of realism, and it's nice
Mhm.
to get away from that a bit, I think, especially with this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not all for like just all realism in movies. I just if a story interests me, and this story definitely interests me, and I just thought it was a very entertaining film.
Yeah, I did as well. I gave this one a 3.5 as well. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it's worth stating because I always, anytime there's like a director, a theme or not a theme, like a genre or something like this where they're all somewhat interconnected. I always like to compare for wrong or for right. And I put this one ahead of trying to remember the name. Uh, Godzilla versus Destroya. I give this one the
Yeah,
nod.
yeah. I give this a 3.5 out of 5 as well. It's actually, I think we both agree it's teetering on a 4 though. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, I think if it I might have set expectations on the ending before we got there, and that is something that was probably the only reason I didn't give it a 4. Um,
Hmm.
just I was kind of just looking for like a bigger impact with the ending, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I even teeter on it even more because I didn't quite realize when this was made as I was watching it. I kind of assumed it was in the 70s, and I think it's more impressive that they were able to do, especially character design and the way that the characters slash monsters moved. It's very impressive for its time, I think.
Yeah. Very impressive.
Any ending thoughts on Ghidorah and Godzilla as a
Um,
whole?
it's a very fun franchise. I definitely think you definitely think like going through chronologically is the best way to go about it, so you can get the whole picture. But
Mhm.
obviously, there's so many Godzilla movies that don't have time. But you know, they're very, very entertaining, very interesting movies.
I'd agree with you. I do think I am going to eventually watch the original and definitely dip my toe into a few more of them because it
Mhm.
has its own kind of unique aura about it, and I
Yeah,
like it a lot.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Is there any theme, Ethan, that you would like to recommend for next week?
All right. I was thinking about it, and I feel like um, that, and now because he's still, I wanted to go back to another director
Mhm.
because I'm just director brain, I guess. But there's one filmmaker that I think his films are absolutely amazing, and recently he's become one of my favorites because of his attention to dialogue and like the atmosphere of his films. And that director is British filmmaker Mike Leigh.
I do not believe I've ever watched a film of his, so I am
I
very
think you'll
excited.
really like him.
What are some films that you've seen and like by this director?
So my favorite of his films is one called Naked.
Okay,
Um, I if we make this next week, I think that'll be my pick. I absolutely adore that movie, and I have a lot to talk about with that.
I look forward to it. I think Naked is on my watch list. I know I'm fairly certain it's very highly rated on Letterboxd, if I'm correct on that.
Yes,
And
a 4.1 out of 5, so very, very
damn,
high.
yes, that's pretty damn good on Letterboxd for sure. And
Yeah,
so dialogue are certainly is one of the things that you say would be his strong suit as a director.
yes, definitely.
I look forward to it because for
Yeah,
me that's definitely so I really do like dialogue a lot,
yes.
and I can't wait. Uh,
Yeah, I can't wait too.
I think it's going to be really exciting for all of you people who made it this far into the video. Be on the lookout for that video as we discuss another great director. Um, hopefully you enjoyed taking a step into the weird and wacky with Godzilla Week, Ethan.
Yes, I will.
And then back to the director path. I do have to say, I really do like kind of getting exposure to new directors. I think it's because it's not something I necessarily picked up on until recently, how directors very much they have a lot of like they'll have themes that are very much particular to them, and you very much get to pick up on kind of the picadillos of their directing and dialogue, and it's really neat to really see like once you get past like 3 or more films, you really get to see a lot of things that they do that jump in multiple movies for them, you know?
Yeah, you get to pick up a lot of a lot of reoccurring situations that they put in their films, a lot of metaphors, a lot of their direction, the way they direct, the way they shoot, uh, the way they frame shots, the way they write dialogue and story and characters. I think that's why I have such a director brain, is because I love going through a director's work and pinpointing what makes them unique.
And I think just a topic to end on would be, and I want to try to word this the best way possible for to get your feeling from it. But when you see great directors, how do you I mean, how do you try to borrow from the greats of the past? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you take the things that you sort of pick up, and you don't copy them, but you take them into account. But first, I feel like you first have to take into account that most directors have unique things, and you're not gonna be able to replicate them, obviously.
Mhm.
Like, take for example David Lynch. He is somebody. He's my second favorite filmmaker ever,
Mhm.
ever. Like the only one that beats him out for me is Tarantino. But
Mm.
I love that man and his films so much, but I will never ever make films like him because he is so weird and specific. It's a specific weird that he
Mhm.
has in his films that nobody can recreate. Nobody.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of comes down like how would you define his is it do you think it's his personality? Do you think it's like an internal worldview that he uses as a metaphor? I mean, how would you kind of describe that the weirdness that he very much injects into his films?
Definitely his personality. He's very offbeat when it comes to how he talks and how he comes across, and it definitely bleeds onto the screen.
Mhm.
And so you take that and you say, I'm not going to be able to recreate this, but take this and I could take the uniqueness and see if I can find my own unique voice.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think you might know this. I believe he was a painter before he was a director, correct?
I think he might have painted after he directed, but
Okay.
I know he painted. That's all. Um,
I think there's definitely something to that that inspires him.
yeah,
The ability to kind of to see something in situations, and it's almost like you can evoke the essence of things, situations, people, and I think that's something he is really good at doing as a director.
yeah.
Um, just from
I loved it.
my limited
Yeah.
experience, like with Eraserhead,
Hmm.
the situation of childbirth, and that's such a you know an emotionally loaded situation for anyone, and
Hmm.
what he highlights from it is it's so beautifully done. A super absurd, off the wall take. I don't think anyone's made a movie like that on that situation, but like just very powerfully done. The way
Yeah.
that he's able to portray certain emotions and feelings for that situation.
Yeah. Definitely. The metaphors he's able to convey with that, as well as many other of his films, just come oddly resonate with you, and it just makes it more emotionally powerful than like most filmmakers can do.
Absolutely.
I love
Uh,
David Lynch. I definitely want to make a future episode about him because he's just amazing. He's just I love him so much.
we absolutely should. Um, that might be my next recommendation, just because he's a director who is very highly lauded that I have yet to really get a full feel for. That I really want to explore more.
Yeah.
All right, Ethan. Any closing thoughts on this episode before we bid the audience adieu?
Nope. I think we've said enough.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. Again, I'm going to link Ethan's YouTube page, Letterbox down below. Definitely check them out. I think you will definitely enjoy and appreciate Ethan's taste and his directorial style as well. And we will catch you on the next week's episode, everyone. Thank you for joining.
See you later.